Hi, everybody. A little bit of laryngitis again, but I am so excited about today's program. I would have gotten out of my deathbed for this. Welcome to a Squirrel special exclusive. It is the return of the Man of Steel, MSNBC's superstar, Michael Steele. Welcome back.
It's good to see you, brother. Look, I'm sorry for the voice, but I'll go easy on you because, that way you won't have to do too much screaming and yelling. But it's so good to be back with you, babe. It really is good.
You're great. I love your library.
Thank you. Thank you. I put it together myself.
Well, let me ask you this. Just one second. Oh, I want to congratulate you on the success of the new weeknight
Yeah.
with Simone Sanders Townsend and Alicia Menendez. You guys make a perfect team. Weeknights at 7 on Eastern on MSNBC. How do you like your partners?
They're great. They're great. They're consummate professionals. I'm learning a lot from them. I mean, this is a new space for me. Both of them had their own shows prior to coming together for originally the weekend, which we launched a year ago. And now we're on the weeknights at 7 p.m. So it's been a big transition. They've been very helpful with that, and it's just been a good conversation that we've been having with a lot of newsmakers in Washington and around the country. And so, look, it's I love, and I
Mm.
kid them because they're both Democrats, and I tell them, I said, I just can't wait till we get back to having big policy fights again. But right now, the mission of I think all of us is how do we deal with the breaking down of systems and the Constitution, the rule of law, the norms, the indiscriminate grabbing of citizens off the street, the
Yep.
indiscriminate prosecution of perceived political enemies. It says a lot about the challenges. So to be able to talk about that every night and to give it context, I think has been really good. And they're a great duo to do that with.
You complement each other very well. You
I
really
appreciate
do.
it.
Well, let's talk about the shutdown of the federal government. It's been going on
Hmm.
for a month now. There was word yesterday, Michael, I'm sure you heard, that a few moderate Democrats talked with some GOP senators about somehow getting the stalemate over and getting the country back on track.
Right.
The shutdown moved into this weekend. If it does, 42 million Americans could be without SNAP's life-saving food, and
Right.
that's such a shame.
It is. So let's set the table so that we know what we're talking about. Right now, my party controls the White House, it controls the Senate, and it controls the House. They set the agenda, the policy for the country, not the minority, not the political opposition. They do. The fact that we're here is because not that Democrats didn't necessarily want to cut the deal, because what the Democrats put on the table was pretty straightforward stuff. It's like, save the healthcare credits so that families don't get kicked off of healthcare. And we're beginning to see the impact of some of those changes that are coming up on the amount people are paying on their policies. So the idea of leadership is recognizing the president has been overseas in Asia while the shutdown is taking place. Mike Johnson has closed the House, not because of the shutdown, not because of the government shutdown, by the way, because he doesn't want to seat Adelita Gerhava, who is the 218th vote, joining with Republicans, by the way, to release the full Epstein files. That's why the House is closed, folks. So y'all can pretend to be stupid on this, but it doesn't change truth and fact. And so we're here now because of a fundamental functional failure of leadership. We're on the precipice of watching, as you noted, 42 million Americans lose their SNAP benefits. Now, the leadership in the Senate, John Thune, has indicated that's they're going to be working to avoid that. We'll see, but the power's in their hand. When you have the majority and you need votes, you have to give a little bit. Just because you have the majority and you need votes doesn't put you in a position to demand that the minority give you their votes. So y'all know how this works. So folks out here who want to act like this is all in the this is a democratic shutdown. It is not. We're here because the leadership of my party won't put something on the table that brings the Democrats out of their corner and say, okay, we'll bite a little bit. Now, to your question, that's what we're beginning to see with Josh Hawley's bill, which was largely designed to begin to address some of the healthcare concerns that folks have, and so making sure that the SNAP benefits are covered. What the Democrats have put on the table is a counter bill that includes WIC, Women, Infants, and Children funding, which is another important poverty-related program. So now you got the beginnings of where you can begin to find some compromise. So, Rich, we'll see what happens. But, you've got to be clear-eyed about this because a lot of our fellow citizens are hurting and a lot of folks out here pretending that they don't know somebody who's being impacted by this are doing a disservice to helping them get the support they need.
Michael, let me ask you this. This is such a divided country. What do you think it will take to bring Americans to a sense of shared purpose? Or will this country ever come together again?
No, it will. It will. So look at it this way, Rich. When we've had that inflection point in our history, what has always been the defining difference? Whether an inflection point to move the country in a good direction or an inflection point to move the country away from a bad direction. For example, embracing the ugliness of Jim Crow versus moving the country towards full civil rights for women and gays and lesbians, et cetera, et cetera. The difference has always been leadership. It has always been leadership. It has been men and women who have honored their oath and have stood up and have refused to play the game the way others would want them to play it because they saw a higher calling and they had a higher purpose in their service. We don't have that now. We have a group of leaders, quite frankly, on both sides of the aisle, who are selfish, self-absorbed, and inconsiderate of you and me and the needs of men and women in our communities. I don't care if you are president. I don't care if you are a county executive. I don't care if you're a mayor of the smallest city in the state of Maryland. Your oath carries you. Your oath is your foundation. Your oath is the thing that we allow you to go out and represent us as best you can. And so that leadership is what we need right now. We need folks to step up and say enough. Members of my party need to get off their behind and just draw the line. I don't care. Donald Trump, y'all didn't know who the hell Donald Trump was 11 years ago. And a lot of you didn't give Donald Trump the time of day when you did know him. And now you're acting like he's Jesus Christ reincarnate. And you need to stop it because you look stupid.
Right now.
And you're hurting the country. And that, for me, Richard, is a big part of this. You cannot sit back and watch poor families. And the thing about it is what's killing me is that the people who are being most affected live in these red districts, come from these red states. The poorest state in the country is a red state, Mississippi. All right. And so you mean to tell me those folks you're just going to sit by as the congressman or the governor or the senator from that state and watch people in your community lose their benefits, we know how the poor struggle in Appalachia, from Maryland all the way up through
Right.
Pennsylvania. We're just going to let that happen? It makes no sense.
You know what, Michael? You were pointing out, well, anyway, right now, Trump has the House, he has the Senate, he has the majority on the Supreme Court, the Justice Department. There's a lot riding on Tuesday's primaries.
Mm-hmm.
What's going to happen, do you think?
Well, look, I think the reality about political campaigns is, uh, you know, is as the saying goes, all politics is local. These are, even though they're for in, governors' races in New Jersey and Virginia, for example, you have the California ballot initiative on redistricting. I think it's Prop 50. um, they're all local races.
Right.
The race for mayor of New York, I had this conversation on Bill Maher last week.
You were
Um,
great, by the way.
thank
You were
you.
fabulous.
Thank you.
He should have you on every other week.
Yeah, I'm telling my buddy that.
All right.
But again, it's a local race. So, in one sense, not in one sense, in the ultimate sense, the voters of each of those jurisdictions I just mentioned are going to decide what's in their best self interest. They will decide who the next governor, the next mayor, or whether or not a proposition should pass or fail. That's the respect for the system. No matter how much what we may think of it, or how badly or good we may feel about it, those voters get to have that choice. Right now, it looks like the voters in Virginia are going to pick a Democratic governor. Um, it looks the same in New Jersey, though the race is a little bit tighter there. Jersey is much more swingy,
Right.
and has historical kind of balance that it's always maintained. We'll see what happens there. Prop 50, the redistricting proposition in California, looks like it will pass. Republicans have largely, for some time now, not stepped up to support the anti-prop position. Their major donors have stopped funding it. Why? Because their internal polls are showing that Republicans support the idea of the proposition. And the fact that Republicans are, in my view, as someone who had the redistricting fight here in Maryland against Paris Glendening when I was state chairman, when they drew the maps in 2000, we followed the law, we followed the process, and we successfully, had changes made to those maps. What we're seeing now is not part of that. This is, in my view, cheating. Because you're afraid you're going to lose the House, you're going to game the system and have a midterm. There's no such thing as a midterm redistricting. That's a bunch of BS, made up BS, because
Amen.
Donald Trump is sitting there telling people to do it. These people have lost their damn minds and are now creating a mess that is going to be problematic for Republicans down the road. Very short-sighted political perspective right now, because don't think that there's going to be a Democratic governor in the future who's going to try to wipe you out. Now, we've seen that up close here in Maryland. Remember, folks, we had a 4-4 delegation here in Maryland, Republican, Democrat, and over the course of 10 years, the Democrats wiped that out to one seat, Andy Harris's seat. And now they're talking about wiping that seat out. How do you feel about that? Well, imagine how people feel in those states where where Republicans are doing that to Democrats. So really, this is what we want to do. So I think these races are going to be interesting. The Mondami race in New York, again, as I said on Bill Maher, it is not a bellwether of anything except what the voters of New York City want. Not even New York State, New York City want for their leadership.
All right. We're going to pause for a second. Great to have you. You're always so good. Fabulous. And I've said fabulous too many times. Right now, Michael, let's listen to the voice of Square Off, the amazing Howard Mallison.
Amazing, amazing. Well, thank you, Richard. You know, with so many cars on the road and distracted drivers everywhere, auto accidents will happen. And if you've experienced an accident, the insurance companies can't tell you where to take your car. That's why more and more drivers are trusting their auto repairs and maintenance to leading edge auto body and mechanical repair. They work on all makes and models, and they offer free pickup and delivery anywhere in the Baltimore area. So call them at 410 443 6433 or visit them at 5807 Falls Road in the heart of Mount Washington. They make your car look and run like new again. And if you're experiencing any kind of foot pain that requires medical attention, I recommend Dr. Kelly Gagan, a well respected board certified podiatrist and heel specialist. No one is immune from foot problems. Also, if your concern is the appearance of your feet, Dr. Gagan has a long record of success using laser treatments to correct your issue. Plus, they're safe and painless and go right to the root of the problem. You can believe me, I'm a cured patient, and so is Richard. So don't suffer from the agony of defeat. Start winning with a call to Dr. Gagan at 410 753 4422 to set up an appointment. Once again, that's 410 753 4422. Now back to you, Richard.
You're fabulous. I said that again. We're back with MSNBC's Michael Steele. Michael, you know, it's no secret that you are not too fond of President Trump. And this goes back even before Trump became president. Now, from the demolition of the East Wing of the White House to make room for the 90,000 square foot gilded ballroom, tariffs galore, blowing up more boats in the Eastern Pacific. Trump says are carrying drugs, killing almost all on board. Meanwhile, the U.S. military buildup in the Caribbean continues. Michael, I want to know if you think these distractions from far from home are intended to make the Epstein files go away.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And there are folks here in town who say that privately. Those like Marjorie Taylor Greene and others are a little bit more vocal about it. They know what's up, and so they're, politics is all about strange bedfellows. So it's hysterical to me listening to a number of the Democrats that I work with and that we have on, aligning themselves with Marjorie Taylor Greene as she has aligned herself with them on the healthcare issue. They've aligned themselves with her on the Epstein issue. So it makes for a very interesting time of conversation here in DC. But yeah, I think you're right in the main, Rich, that there is a lot of distraction. It is a whole bunch of everything everywhere all at once. Having people to deal with crises on a number of fronts at the same time, whether it is indiscriminately killing individuals in a boat whom we don't know anything about. In fact, isn't it interesting that the two survivors of the boat episode 2 episodes ago, two times, I guess before this one, the one before,
Yeah.
right? Two people survived. How they just got whisked off. We don't know anything about them. They just disappeared. Why? Because you don't want any. They don't want you to know their story. They don't want them standing in front of cameras or getting lawyers telling the story that we were just out fishing. And so can we just also be honest about that, people? Where does the fentanyl come from? It's not coming from Venezuela. It's coming from China and Mexico. And from Mexico, who is the number one purveyor of fentanyl coming across the border? It's U.S. citizens. It's not Mexicans. So why are we blowing up Venezuelans and their boats? Why are we now threatening to create a land incursion into Venezuela without congressional approval? And when did we declare war on Venezuela? What the hell are we doing? So I just want to know,
Good question.
Where are we on this? So those things are major distraction. But the problem with distractions like that is that unattended, unaccounted for, unaddressed, they become big problems, and they create other problems that go with them. So when you're grabbing Letitia James and you're pulling up John Bolton and you're going after Jim Comey, that you may think, oh, well, that's just them up there. No, it sets a predicate for coming after you, which you've already seen with the congressional candidate who was now, being prosecuted for protesting, right? Exercising her First Amendment rights. So we can't do that anymore. We can't say that this government is out of line, that this government is illiberal, that this government is trampling the rights of citizens and protest the treatment of others in our custody. We can't do that now. And if not, please have a conversation with the founders. Go back and read the founding documents or the Federalist Papers, so you can reacquaint yourself with how this country was formed. So yeah, these things do matter, Richard, in a big way. And I hope that more of our citizens would take their responsibility here seriously. Unless, of course, you're down for all of this, in which case, then we're going to have a bigger problem the more citizens who think this is okay. Because trust me, one day you're going to be looking around for some rights that you no longer allowed to exercise. And then what are you going to do?
That is a very good question. What about this revenge tour, going after people who, in his opinion, wronged him? And you mentioned Comey, and you mentioned Letitia James and John Bolton. What is it he's allowed to do, Mr. Trump?
Well, he's not allowed to do that. First off, the Justice Department is not his own private law firm. That Justice Department works for the American people. I've always thought that the Attorney General should run for national office, should have to run and not have. We avoid a lot of this. Just not do it, because we are clearly in a space where they've become, over the last few administrations, allegations of corruption, allegations of weaponizing of the department, the politicization of the department, certainly glaring in this administration as it was in the first term. But even during the Biden term, you can make a case for some of that. That we need to break this cycle, because it is this, when we can no longer trust the law enforcement of this country, we can no longer trust the men and women who are charged with upholding the laws because they've been corrupted by one man to break the law. I mean, ICE now is basically a working stormtrooper operation. Anytime a law enforcement personnel have to cover their face on the streets of our city to do their job, imagine what y'all would be saying out here. Baltimore City Police had their faces covered when they were executing an arrest, or Anne Arundel County or Baltimore County Police had their faces covered, or state troopers had their faces covered when they came up on a traffic stop and pulled your ass out of your car. What you gonna do? Badge numbers covered up. What? Or no badge at all, no insignia at all. I mean, is this really what we want? We want to create something out of the 1930s.
Well, how's it going to be stopped?
We know that road doesn't end well for anybody. So I think in the main, voices need to, going back to how we started the conversation about leadership, Richard, voices within the leadership of the majority party need to assert the congressional prerogatives that are given to them by the Constitution as a co-equal branch of government, and call for the accountability, have the administration account for the actions it's taken. Unless, of course, you can't do that, in which case you shouldn't be in the job. You shouldn't be in the job.
We'll continue with Michael Steele, our exclusive square off, after these words from Howard. You're muted.
I am. Okay. For breakfast, lunch, and dinner, your choice for a great meal starts at the Double T Diner. and all the menu choices are served the entire day. The Double T Diner has locations all over town: Route 40 West, Perry Hall, White Marsh, Bel Air, Laurel, and Annapolis, including Pasadena and the EC Diner in Ellicott City. You've never seen a menu with so many selections. It's like reading an encyclopedia. It's why the Double T Diner wins so many reader polls. Plus, Monday nights are lobster nights at By the Docks,
Look
part
at
of the
it.
Double T family. Let them know you heard about them on Square Off. And if you or your family members experience personal injury, medical malpractice, or nursing home neglect, it's time to call the law firm of Barry Glazer. He has the legal team and resources to go after big insurance companies to get you every penny he can. And with an in house medical doctor and nurse, his attorneys work on the toughest and most complex medical malpractice cases. Barry Glazer is your best advocate for the injured, disabled, and medically abused. So give Barry Glazer a call at 410 547 8568. Let him know you heard about him on Square Off. Now back to you guys.
All right, thanks very much, Howard. Michael, you
Hmm.
were deservedly so the first African American chairman of the Republican National Committee, first lieutenant governor, also of African American descent. Despite working at liberal media, MSNBC, you mentioned earlier in this interview that your family, your kids are Democrats, but you remain a Republican. Why?
Well, first of all, my kids are registered independents. They have a whole different. They're My boys are very having seen a
Independent.
lot of the politics from the inside, have very strong views about both parties and how they function or fail to function. Coming up next year, I will be 50 years a Republican. My first
Oh,
election was 1976. And I remember celebrating the centennial and um, having the experience of you know that 1976 vibe with the election and all the festivities that year. Um, Learning a lot about the growth and the history of both parties and understanding in a particular way, Richard, the roots of the African American experience, not just in the country, but politically, where the opportunities came from, who the first elected Republican black officials were, happened to be Republican. Um, but more fundamentally, the reason I call myself a Lincoln Republican, which is detached from the brand of Republican or the brand of Democrat or just the way we look at our politics, is because for me, it's always been a philosophical underpinning of how I would govern an elected official, how I would lead in politics, around this idea that we are all endowed by God with these inalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that are foundational to the constitutional freedoms and civil liberties that we have. And so the party was formed with the idea of defending those things, not throwing up a pro-life or a pro-gun or small limited government position. Those things are all, you know, politics and policy that can come at any point in time. But what is the common thread? It is about your rights and my rights under the Constitution, and the fact that everything else begins and ends with that. And so what I see now is a party that has disrespect for those things, that looks through a very, very narrow lens at the American people and otherizes them. Now, I've had to deal with that inside the party, not just under Trump. I mean, it's a long history. This goes back to the 1930s for Republicans. It's nothing new.
yeah.
But we've always had men and women of goodwill and good conscience who would stand up and say no, and would always point in a better direction, whether it was Dwight Eisenhower or whether it was Ronald Reagan or whether it was George Bush Sr., for example, who were always putting out 1,000 points of light, to use that example, for the country and for the party. So this is an aberration, in my view. It may survive, it may revive the party, but then again, it may not. But for me, that thread of who I am and what I believe as a Republican still matters, and it's not a policy thing. It's not, being a conservative. I don't know what that means in the context of Abraham Lincoln. What I do know is when the party was formed, it was formed because it was fighting for the freedom of everyone under our Constitution.
Michael, in our final few minutes, I want you to imagine that you had actually become a Catholic priest and you chose this line instead. It's a Sunday morning, time for the 8 a.m. service. It's time for your sermon. And the only congregant in the church is President Donald Trump. There'll be no ramifications, no punishment. What would you say to Donald Trump?
Well, I would, I think it's important to understand in the context that you described that the gospel message boils down to one thing, and I would put a couple of points on the table. In the Old Testament, God gave us 10 commandments, right? 10 commandments,
right?
And we seemingly can't do those 10 things. We are flawed. We are human, but God gave us free will, which makes it difficult to do those 10 things. In the New Commandment, God only gave us one. I mean, the New Testament, God only gave us one commandment. And most folks don't recognize what it was and when it occurred. The one commandment occurred at the baptism of the Lord. And the one commandment was, listen to him. Listen to my son. And then when you do that, what is the one and only thing Christ, of all the things that do, all the stories in the Bible, in the New Testament, what does it all come back to? In every example, from the woman at the well to the Good Samaritan, what does it come down to? Love thy neighbor as thyself. And so I think it's important that we all take a moment and be reflective of how much we love ourselves, because that's going to be a reflection of how much we love our neighbors. And if we cannot reconcile the fact that we are flawed and we have things that swallow us up, how do we care for the poor? How do we help the widow? How do we lift children up? And so we need to have that moment. And I would say to him, you need to take a moment and look at yourself and look at what you're doing and ask yourself, is there love there? And that's going to ultimately boil down to him and God. It's going to boil down between you and God, me and God, regardless of your religious persuasion or belief system. I believe we all at some day have to account for how we loved each other. And so that would probably be the beginning of that sermon.
Can I get an amen, Michael?
Amen.
Amen. It was a pleasure, it always is, to have you on Square Off. We could go on for hours, but we'd like to have you back in a few months, 3, 6.
We'll get back together and talk about what happened in November as we get ready to turn into what will be a full-throated political cycle in 26.
And we look forward to seeing you and your partners weeknights, 7 to 9.
That's 7 to 9 on Mondays, 7 to 8 Tuesday through Fridays on MSNBC.
All right. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Rich. Good to see you, man.
You look great.
Take
care. Hey, we'll see you all, ladies and gentlemen, next week, our post-election show here on Square Off. So long.